I am Neil Larthos. I am the next Abdullah. You are the next Neville Goddard. Your SP gets wet every single time they think of you, and your bank account makes Jeff Bezos look homeless. If you guys want to work with me, the links are in the description. And subscribe for daily manifestation content. Telepathy deep dive. Am I crazy, or is SP calling me? Your SP is begging for you. Stop thinking this is delusional. Whenever you have all these thoughts, these doubts, these fears, what if I told you that they weren't fears or doubts, but it was simply just your 3D trying to organize everything to match your desire, to match your declaration that you have SP? Because I've seen it with a lot of my clients, and I've seen it with a lot of my manifestation experiments that I still do to this day. And almost every time, weird things begin to happen before we actually get our desire. Okay? Look, I didn't even want to get into this, and I'm not going to go into so much detail, but even personally, okay? I had someone who I really love in my life who, everything was going great for her, right? And everything was going great for me. And I wanted to shift into a different version of myself. You see, just because I'm a manifestation coach does not mean that I don't feel like, I was going to say the need to grow. Let me rephrase that. Just because I'm a manifestation coach does not mean that I don't want to improve. I'm always trying to improve, right? I'm always manifesting things about this channel, about finances, even about personality. As a matter of fact, if there's anybody who's gone through different shifts and identities, and not even so much so to get a SP or anything, just for the simple fact that sometimes I like being more stoic, and then other times I like being more of the comedian. And other times I like to be more of a hard worker. Other times I like to be more alpha, more somewhere in the middle where I can still be my comical self. If there's anyone who's done that, it's me, right? But going back to this person who meant a lot to me, I was noticing huge movements in this desire of mine, and a lot of them were positive. But one of the things that happened was that this person of mine got into a car accident, and it almost caused them to basically leave town, right? And it was this big thing, where it literally felt like everything was going great, and then all of a sudden this person says that they got to leave, right? They got into a car accident, and it was just like, what else could go wrong, right? Now, because I was such in a high state of mind, even though there were parts of me that felt anger and contempt for the 3D reality, I was able to manifest this person to not leave and to even say that they were making a mistake, right? Well, the way that it happened, it was just so odd, right? Because this person, I'm not saying that it's not common to get into a car accident, but when stuff just happens and you're like, why out of all times did it have to happen now? Well, it's never a coincidence, right? And when you are getting your SP, things are going to happen where you think to yourself, holy shit, all hope is lost. Just when I thought that I was going to be able to get them because they're single, oh my gosh, they're engaged. Oh my Lanta, they have a new boyfriend, new girlfriend. Shit will hit the fan, most likely before you get your SP. But that is when you have to simply say, not like what other coaches are saying, just to completely ignore the 3D. I would never say ignore the 3D. Label the 3D as the past and your 4D as the current. But one thing you could also do, because the default is 3D's past, 4D's current. But another thing you can do is to simply understand how the 3D works and just tell it like it is. Shit looks like if it's hitting the fan, because whenever I have to do a complete 360 from not having my SP to having my SP, it's like the world has to pull the rug from underneath everybody's feet, and it's just, flipping them in the air, and everything goes chaos, and it's a mess. And right now, the 3D just has to organize it, right? That's how I often picture the 3D whenever it's giving us our desire. Because let's face it, a lot of people say, oh, well, I mean, you could just snap your fingers and SP is knocking on your door. But that's not the way it works. In my experience, it has to come in a natural way. Now, whether that's quick or whether that's in a completely long duration of time, all I know is that it has to feel natural. I mean, yeah, sometimes people are like, oh my gosh, I can't believe this happened. But again, UFOs are not going to come down, okay? People say, I could resurrect somebody from the dead. You can resurrect somebody from the dead, but not in the way you think, okay? Oh my gosh, Neo, what? Seriously? But Eric told me this, and, Athena Raven told me that, and SJ. Look, when you want somebody to be resurrected from the dead, what you really want is to not feel the pain of their death. Let's just be honest here. And you can get to that point where it feels like they're just there with you, even though we're not actually telling you guys that you can make them crawl out of the grave like Nosferatu, okay? But I think many people, when they say stuff like that, like, I just want to use manifestation to completely change my face and I want to turn black. Look, manifestation is ultimately about understanding the way reality works, okay? And when you understand that when negative bullshit is occurring in your reality, and that actually is a good thing, that is when you completely become based, detached, strong. And that's really when you start seeing results happen quicker. Because when you get into the state of not giving a fuck, which happens when you are okay with just experiencing intimacy with your SP in the 4D, you want to see a text, give it to yourself right there. When you actually know how to invoke the emotion inside rather than outside, how can you not be detached? Because it feels like you got the cheat code while everybody else is still, pulling their hair, figuring out, what am I going to do? What am I going to do? But there you are in the corner just laughing to yourself because you know the end of the fucking story, right? But again, your SP is begging for you right now. Even if you work with them, they're in the next cubicle and they don't even look your way. They're begging for you. But you see, you keep focusing on the version of them that's in that cubicle. I'm not talking about that version. Because remember, what have I said before? The 3D is the past. But I'm talking about they're begging for you now. So how can the SP who works with you in the office and sits next to you in the other cubicle who's ignoring you, how can I be talking about them when I just told you that the 3D is the past? Understanding the way reality works means that you have to know that even when you get your SP in the 3D, you are not getting them in the now moment. You are getting them because you gave them to yourselves already in the now moment, which when you get them in the 3D, that's going to be a past reflection of what you gave yourself right now. And you're like, oh, fuck this shit. Never mind. I'm just going to go do some calculus. Look, I know it seems like if you have to have an imaginary friend. I get that. But again, guys, we have been doing this our whole lives with negative shit, okay? It doesn't take a rocket scientist to explain to us that we're ugly when we get a pimple, okay? It doesn't take evidence to be given to us when all the lights are red on our way to work when we're running late, and we just automatically say, oh, my life sucks, I'm such a loser. Even if the whole week you were getting nothing but raises and compliments every single time you walk. I mean, I can't even tell you how many just great looking women will tell me that I don't feel good enough. I don't feel worthy. I don't feel loved. Yet they have 50 million men just blowing up their inbox. But why? Because if it's not that one guy, if it's not that one guy who represents the version of what they perceive to be as success, then they don't see themselves as successful, because they realize that everybody in their life is reflecting them, right? Now you might be wondering, okay, so if it's true that all this negative shit is simply a sign that my SP is on their way, how can I know the difference between a negative sign that's actually a good negative because it means that my SP is on the way? Or how can I notice the difference between negativity that is coming from me doing my techniques wrong, or my SP is actually not on its way and I'm not following instructions? What is the difference? Well, first of all, if it's a negative thing that is occurring just because the 3 is trying to reorganize everything, that is not a negative thing, first of all, right? The only one who's calling it negative is you. But there are things that you can notice that happen in your 3D or are going on in your head that tell you that your SP is not on its way. And you want to know how you know? If you even think about the possibility that your SP is not on their way, then guess what? There's a good chance that they probably aren't. Because if you have to keep checking, am I doing this right? Is this negative thought a sign that the SP is on its way or not? If you have to keep asking yourself that, then you are uncertain. And where does uncertainty come from? It comes from the state of the person who lacks. And if you are in the state of lack, how the fuck can you have the number one person in this world that you desire? Think about that. So again, this is what we mean by manifestation is instant, because you can have 6 months of watching these manifestation videos and you still keep making the same mistake of checking the 3D. But all it takes is one night where it clicks. And I swear to God, whether they knock on the door that next morning or whether it takes a little bit for things to come to fruition in the physical realm, that moment that everything clicks and you realize what the 3D is doing, that you don't have to worry about how ugly it's getting because everything is working in your favor. When you realize that and you are just able to sit back and relax, Sabbath max, I mean, it's just as good as being served to you on it's just like if you ordered something on Amazon and maybe it's just on back order, but you have the confirmation number, you have the receipt, it's on its fucking way. I am Neil Larthos. This is all that the I Am Awareness had to say, and I know you're gonna be okay.